All right, we are in the booth, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Jacksonville's Retirement Coach, the podcast hosted by Adam Wolf, the president, CPA, and CFP of Wolf Retirement Navigation. And isn't that the name, right? You need someone that's going to fight hard for you, and you need help navigating what could be a tricky path, especially through retirement. If you want to get in touch with Adam and the team, we'll remind you of this later on, too. Go to wolfretirement.com, wolfretirement.com, or dial them up, 904-232-8760. Adam's been in this game for over a quarter century. So you've seen the market, everyone, go up and down a lot since April. Well, he's seen it go way up and way down in his quarter century of covering this stuff. And before we get into the topic du jour, Adam, how you doing today?
Oh, outstanding, Doug, as always. So, great to see you. And how you been?
I'm doing real well, thank you. It's been a fun season here, getting to talk to you, learn more about the business. I know you had the client event right after taxes, and now we're into summer. And I guess a big milestone, Adam, is that your daughter did I hear you right, is now a middle schooler?
Yeah, she's going into 7th grade now. So she finished up school, which for a lot of my clients that have known me for a long time, they remember before Isabella.
Yeah.
So, but they always like getting the Isabella updates because she's growing like a weed, and the next step is 7th grade. So, yeah, she's been a middle schooler for going on 1 year now, plus 2 years. So I want to take her back to like age 10 or 11, though, because she's starting to change. I don't know if you started to change when you were that age, Doug, but I did. And so, but my parents finally got to like me a lot better over the years. So,
well, that's a great point, is that, you go through that awkward phase there. You kind of shed the innocence and the compliance a little bit, and you get, go different direction than usually as an adult. You come back more to appreciate your parents there. But that's big, though. Middle school, I remember right before I started, I think it was the night before middle school started, I'd heard some rumors about some of the teachers, and I wasn't the anxious or stressed type, but I started bawling. I mean, I fell on the floor on Sunday night crying before going to middle school, not because of social, but because I heard it was so hard. So I look forward to you giving her some good advice of how to navigate middle school there. I'm sure that's going to be fun.
Yeah, she got 1 year in middle school under her belt already, but this is now she's there, and she's not the top dog because that's the 8th graders, right, but she's sort of right in the middle. She's like the Jan Brady of middle school.
Marsha. Oh, that's funny. Well, we wish her luck. Hope she's got a big summer planned, and I can't think of many better places to spend summer than Jacksonville. I love the hot weather. I'm based out of Atlanta, so I definitely love that. Well, our previous episodes, we talked about what happened during draft day with Shedeur Sanders and getting prank called by the son of the defensive coordinator of my team, the Atlanta Falcons. We talked about scams, though. We used that to parlay into scams. And then we also talked about people that are more worried about going broke than dying. So check out our past shows on the Meteor Podcast tab at wolfretirement.com. Or you can also go to Apple and Spotify and some of the other podcatchers and find Jacksonville's Retirement Coach and find all of our episodes. And Adam and I have covered quite a few over time here, so be sure to check those out. Now, today, we're going to just really break it down. And I say simple, but it's one of the most basic questions that is like a nesting doll of other questions, which is the common questions you get. In fact, 5 of them, Adam, from your clients. So can you break those down for us?
Yeah. So, I mean, doing this for a while, and you get a lot of the same questions from folks. So I wanted to address those common questions in no particular order of importance, but just things that jump out to my clients and to folks that I meet with before they become clients. So a big question I get is, should I pay off my mortgage? And another way people ask that question is, should I pay cash for a car? So let's address that. I look at it, we got to crunch the numbers. We got to look at what makes sense math-wise. If you have a very low interest rate, all right, a 2, a 3, a 4% interest rate, and you're paying that on a mortgage, and your cash flow is good, whether it's right before you retire or when you're in retirement, and you can make more interest or make more growth outside of that 2 to 4%, then it makes sense to not pay your mortgage off or down significantly, because it's a math answer. It's I make more interest, I make more growth than I would if I didn't have it. So that's the math piece behind it. Even if you have a bunch of cash sitting on the sidelines, if you're making 3 or 4 or 5% in cash, then it might be better to have that cash available for other things, because once you put it into the home, it becomes sort of illiquid for a lot of people. That's the math piece.
Yeah.
But the non-math piece is not having a mortgage. Holy moly, that is a wonderful feeling. And sometimes, it just makes more sense for many people just to pay it off. And hey, we might be giving up a little bit of growth from the math perspective, but it makes sense not to have that payment and not to have that debt overhang. In addition to that, crunching the numbers, if you're pulling money out of IRAs that are taxable in the year you take it out, we want to crunch the numbers to see, does it make sense for the interest paying versus the taxes that you're paying to pull the money out. And we have to look at that case by case.
Well, no doubt. And all of these instances are case by case basis. That's why it's so important to get in touch with Adam Wolf and the Wolf Retirement Navigation Team, wolfretirement.com, 904-232-8760. And I definitely feel that tension too. All right. I go very aggressive paying my mortgage, but it also means that money's not liquid if you need it. If it's in a high yield savings account, it's less liquid if it's folded into your mortgage. All right. Now another question I see is, should I enjoy my money now or later? I could see that going a lot of directions, Adam.
Yeah, I summarize that one because it's a lot of folks that I meet with are conservative savers. And when I say conservative savers, folks that live within their means, pay themselves first, took advantage of compounding interest over decades, employer plans, matching of interest in 401ks, putting money away and saving it for that rainy day, for retirement. Some people who are conservative savers, it's very difficult and can become very difficult for them to actually spend their money and enjoy their money. And it's counterintuitive because the way I phrase the question for my clients is, do you want to enjoy it now or do you want to make your kids rich? That's really what it boils down to. And you can do both, and you can give your kids the leftover plan, but it's what you desire.
Yeah.
And my goal here is to help people not only navigate this stuff from the financial perspective, but from the being able to enjoy, not frivolously, but enjoy. And I'll give you a great story. I have a client, and they took their family on a trip to an Alaska cruise, 3 kids, multiple grandkids. They picked up the whole tab: airfare, hotels, cruise. Whereas 10 years ago, it was very difficult for them to even think about spending a couple bucks extra on a better seat in Comfort Plus at Delta versus the being in the back of the plane. So those types of things, coming up with a plan is how you solve for it, making sure over time it's easy and it's not frivolous. That's the goal, and helping people do that.
Well, I think that's really important to address that tension, all right, because you don't want to feel guilty either way how you decide to do it. Then there's the risk factor. So what do people ask you about risk?
Yeah, how much market risk do I need? How much market risk do I have? How much market risk should I take? Those are, all sort of combined together. And a lot of people I meet with don't know really how much risk they have to begin with, whether it's 401ks, their IRAs. We do a full analysis on that, and we look into the details, and then we pull it all together holistically to say, this is where you stand. And everybody's definition of conservative or moderate or aggressive is a little different, but we'll break it down to where, how much could you potentially lose? And if it can be temporary or permanently lost, it is risk. If it's principally protected, whether it's by the FDIC or by insurance companies, that is principally protected. So we'll call that safe. So I look at it first in how much money do we have parked safely that we do not want to lose, and then how much can we take a risk with, and then diversifying those risks between multiple different asset classes, meaning stock market investments, maybe fixed or bond market investments, having those different asset classes, not all do the same thing at the same time and be diversified. That is how we meet the needs of answering that risk question. But we first have to know what your current risk is to get to that actual required risk of what you want and what you need.
Hey, got to know what's going on before you can make a plan. And then there's the question about life insurance too.
Yeah, life insurance, that's, people are getting ready to retire. Should I keep my life insurance? Most of the time, about 9 times out of 10, no. You don't need to insure something that now you don't have the need for anymore, because you were using life insurance to ensure the need of having a pot of money in case your earnings weren't there anymore when you weren't there anymore. So now you're retired. And so 9 times out of 10, we don't need life insurance. For folks that may need life insurance, it's for using it, in my opinion, for a death benefit in case a pension goes away. So the surviving spouse has a bucket of money that's available. If the spouse's pension goes away, that's number one. Number two could be using life insurance for living benefits, whether it's long-term care benefits or supplementing your retirement income tax-free. That could be an option as well. So for most people, life insurance doesn't make sense. And if you have an older life insurance policy that's not a term, that is just, a permanent insurance policy with some cash value, you might need to cash that out. But what are the tax ramifications? Or could that be used for you in a better way, or replaced with something that could be better use for you and your current needs versus the original needs and intentions?
And watch the taxes, right? That's something that your firm specializes so much in, is the tax implication of doing that either way. And then there's legacy planning that people talk about, and they flip a coin on this one. Well, they do more than flip a coin. They ask their advisor, okay? They ask you.
The big question is, do I need a will or do I need a trust? And for folks that haven't had a will in place or never had a will in place, or maybe they had a will for when they had the kids, and guardianship stuff, but now it's fast forward all these decades later, or they're moving from a state other than Florida into Florida and want to get caught up with Florida state law. A will, and we don't draft documents at Wolf Retirement. We're not attorneys. Only attorneys can draft documents, legally in Florida and give advice on that. But we can help with estate planning, which the big nuance here, will, where I want my stuff to go when I'm no longer here. But I tell everybody to avoid probate and the costs of probate and the time with probate, having your beneficiaries updated. Beneficiaries from IRAs, 401ks, life insurance, all that goes directly to the beneficiaries without going through probate. In addition to that, any non-IRAs, brokerage accounts, checking accounts, savings accounts, having what's called a transfer on death, or TODs, and each bank and each credit union has their own forms for that. So that's like a beneficiary designation, but for a non-IRA. If you do that, that can clear up those accounts and go to who you want them to go to. So you can get a lot of the stuff done. Your house, you can do what's called a ladybird deed and put a beneficiary on there in case, when you pass, they take over probate free. You want to have some, experience with and discussions with an attorney as well, estate planning attorney, to see if it makes sense to do a trust. Now, trust could be if you have, a lot of real estate. You could have a situation with a child or a grandkid that you want to take care of, a special need, or, hey, if my son inherits $100,000, he's going to spend it the next day. So you want to put some protections in there for him to navigate that stuff. So there's lots of different intricacies there, but yes, at a minimum, you need a will. And for a lot of folks, you need a trust, but a lot of folks can get what they want to have accomplished without a trust. So don't be, sold a trust, which is what a lot of attorneys are out there doing that I've seen from clients. So if you need an attorney to draft these documents, first come to us to talk about it, and then we can refer you to people that we trust who do our own personal stuff.
Now, that's a great point, is don't get upsold, if you will. Contact Adam Wolf or an advisor you trust about that first. So Adam, these are just 5 common questions about that clients shoot your way, all right? Paying off their mortgage or not, enjoying their money now or later, how much risk should they take, do they need life insurance, and should they get a will or a trust? But I know there are dozens, maybe hundreds of others they can ask. If they want to set up that first look with you, is it complimentary? Is there a commitment by call them 904-232-8760? You're going to wolfretirement.com. How does it work?
Yeah, so you come on in and we take you through the process, and we ask a lot of questions. We diagnose a lot of things, but we do it in a complimentary way. So there's no charges to you until you become a client, and then we spell out how that would look. But before jumping the gun, we're here to help solve problems. We're here to help answer your questions. So come on in, talk with us, and you got an hour with me to ask any questions you want about finances. So that's we're here to help with.
For sure. Again, go to wolfretirement.com. You can click the contact form and get on Adam's calendar over there and let Andrea and Robert at the office get you on the calendar, and then Adam and the team will meet with you. Well, Adam, thank you so much for explaining this, and I know people, they want to get in touch with you, get that complimentary Retire Smart plan, but maybe they have even more basic questions before they get that plan going. So thank you for showing us what some of those are.
Excellent, Doug. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you, buddy. And thank you so much to our producer, Rob Scott, for getting this stitched up and published. And thanks to all of you for listening. Be sure to check out Wolf Retirement on Facebook. They put a lot of good articles there and a lot of the videos, snippets from this podcast, videos from Adam's TV appearances, which we didn't even talk about those today. You can also find some of that on Instagram and on YouTube. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and any of the podcatchers, all the places you can find Wolf Retirement Navigation and Jacksonville's Retirement Coach. This podcast is hosted by Adam Wolf, who's President, CPA, and CFP of Wolf Retirement Navigation. I'm your co-host, Doug Turnbull. Thank you for listening. We'll have another episode soon coming your way of Jacksonville's Retirement Coach.
Investment advisory services offered through Coil Capital LLC, a registered investment advisor. Wolf Retirement Navigation LLC and Coil Capital LLC are not affiliated. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. No investment strategy can guarantee a profit or protect against loss in periods of declining values. Opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and are not intended as investment advice or to predict future performance. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Consult your financial professional before making any investment decision. This information is designed to provide general information on the subjects covered. It is not, however, intended to provide specific legal or tax advice and cannot be used to avoid tax penalties or to promote, market, or recommend any tax plan or arrangement. Please note that Wolf Retirement Navigation LLC and its affiliates do not give legal or tax advice. You are encouraged to consult your tax advisor or attorney. Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurer. Any references to protection or benefits or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products or services. Fixed insurance and annuity product guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing company and not offered by Coil Capital LLC. Florida Insurance License Number W016816.